You've seen it before. The sudden silence after a joke she didn't laugh at. The glance that lingers not with affection but with quiet judgment. The subtle challenge, why do you always do that? Delivered not out of curiosity but like a blade probing for weakness. And in that moment you ask yourself, why does she do this? Why, when you've given her your best, does she seem to pull it apart thread by thread, testing its strength until you feel naked, exposed, questioned in the very core of your masculinity? Here is the brutal truth. Women test men relentlessly because nature itself demands it. Niccolò Machiavelli, the ruthless political philosopher of the Renaissance, wrote, "Men must be either flattered or crushed." He wasn't speaking of women, but the principle is the same. Power respects only power. And the moment weakness is revealed, it will be exploited. Modern men want peace in relationships. We dream of loyalty, of a woman who will simply accept us. But women are not built to accept. They are built to select. They are nature's gatekeepers, designed by biology to sift through the noise and find the signal. And the test? That is her instrument, her filter, her battlefield. You've experienced this battlefield whether you admit it or not. The sarcastic remark after your promotion, the subtle flirting with another man in front of you just to see your reaction, the sudden withdrawal of affection when you thought things were finally stable. It's maddening, isn't it? You feel betrayed. You ask yourself, why can't she just be satisfied? Why can't she stop testing me? But what if I told you her testing isn't about you at all? What if I told you it's about something older, deeper, written in her nervous system, woven into the architecture of female psychology? Machiavelli observed that people, nations, rulers, lovers, never stop probing for weakness. Because survival depends on knowing whether the foundation is strong or fragile. A woman's relentless testing of a man is not cruelty. It is instinct. It is her unconscious way of asking, can you hold me? Can you hold the chaos of life itself? The bitter irony is this. Most men fail not because the test is unfair, but because they reveal their desperation. They argue, they plead, they get defensive. And in doing so, they show exactly what she fears most: fragility. Every man watching this has felt the pain of this paradox. You want her acceptance, yet she gives you resistance. You long for her peace, yet she gives you chaos. And in your darkest nights, you wonder, is love even possible if it feels like a battlefield? But here's the deeper insight. Machiavelli would tell you that the test is not your enemy. The test is the path. It is her way of forcing you to grow, of pushing you toward the strength she unconsciously craves. If you cannot withstand her storms, how will you withstand the storms of life? This video will show you why women test relentlessly, how Machiavelli's brutal wisdom unveils the hidden mechanics of female psychology, and why, once you understand it, you will stop resenting the test and start mastering it. Because the truth is simple. If she stops testing you, it doesn't mean you've won. It means she's already lost faith. And that is when the real danger begins. A woman's test is not a random act. It is not drama for the sake of drama. It is not cruelty. It is strategy. It is biology. It is survival. Think about it. For most of human history, a woman's life and the survival of her children depended on the strength of the man she chose. A weak man meant starvation, vulnerability, death. A strong man meant protection, resources, survival. So nature hardwired women with a mechanism: test him, push him, see if he breaks. And here's where Machiavelli enters the scene. Machiavelli taught rulers one core principle of power: never trust appearances, test loyalty, pressure alliances, strike at weakness before it strikes you. What he observed in politics applies equally to desire. Just as a prince must constantly test his advisors to see if they are truly loyal or secretly plotting betrayal, a woman tests her man to see if he is truly strong or just pretending? You've seen this play out in your own life. She questions your decisions, even when you're certain you're right. She withholds affection just to see if you crumble. She makes a cutting remark in public, waiting to see if you laugh it off or collapse in shame. Why? Because on some primal level, she knows that a man's mask of confidence can be faked, but his reaction under pressure cannot. That's the essence of testing. Reveal his core by turning up the heat. Here's the paradox. Men want comfort, women create tension. Men want peace, women deliver storms. Men want acceptance, women bring resistance. And if you're unprepared, it feels like betrayal. It feels like sabotage. But it's not sabotage, it's selection. Women often don't even know why they test. They don't sit down with a strategy chart, plotting ways to destabilize you. The test is unconscious. It flows through her naturally, like breathing. But here's the brutal truth Machiavelli would whisper in your ear. Just because it's unconscious doesn't mean it's innocent. The effect is the same. The weak are exposed, the strong rise. So let me ask you, how do you respond to the test? Do you panic? Do you explain yourself endlessly, hoping she'll see your side? Do you lash out, trying to dominate her with anger? Or do you remain centered, calm, unshaken, unwilling to play her emotional game? Because that's the difference between a boy and a man, between the ruled and the ruler, between the desperate suitor who begs for approval and the sovereign who commands respect. In The Prince, Machiavelli warns rulers never to rely on fortune because fortune is fickle. Instead, they must rely on virtù, their inner strength, their ability to bend chaos to their will. Women test for this same thing. They are fortune personified, unpredictable, chaotic, shifting like the wind. And your response, your presence, your composure, proves whether you are a man of virtù or just another victim of fortune's cruelty. The irony is brutal. The test you hate most is the very thing that proves you worthy. The storm you resent is the only thing that forges you unbreakable. And Machiavelli's wisdom makes it clear, power is never given. It is tested, taken and proven, again and again. Every man dreams of peace in love, of coming home to softness, to warmth, to a woman who finally accepts him without challenge. But if you've lived long enough, you already know, peace rarely lasts. The battlefield always returns. It starts small, a sarcastic remark, a raised eyebrow at your decision, a question dripping with quiet accusation. Why do you always do it that way? At first you dismiss it, then it grows. Arguments out of nowhere, emotional withdrawals, the storming out, the cold silence. And in the middle of it all, you wonder, why can't she just be satisfied? Why can't she stop? Here's the uncomfortable truth, because chaos is her weapon. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must never allow himself to grow complacent, for complacency breeds vulnerability. He advised princes to keep their soldiers busy, their rivals uneasy, their subjects uncertain, because a restless population is easier to control than a complacent one. Sound familiar? That's the psychology of the test. Women do not want a complacent man. A man who relaxes too much, who assumes he's safe, is already on the path to decay. Testing is her way of keeping you sharp, her way of making sure you are alive in the fight. You may see her as your partner. She often, unconsciously, sees herself as your examiner. You're not just her lover, you're on trial every day. But why? Why not simply offer peace? Because peace, in her eyes, is dangerous. Peace means you stop growing. Peace means you soften. Peace means you get lazy, and laziness is death, both in the jungle of evolution and in the modern world, where another man is always waiting to take your place. Men crave stability, women inject volatility. Men crave loyalty, women probe for betrayal. Men crave certainty, women test for truth. It feels like betrayal because you expected home to be safe. But home is not safe. Home is the second battlefield after the world, and only a man who can rule both survives. This is why men who beg for peace in relationships always suffer. They cling to the illusion that once they win her heart, the tests will stop. But here is the Machiavellian insight. The moment the tests stop, you've already lost. If she no longer tests, it's because she's no longer invested. She's disengaged. She's searching elsewhere. Chaos is not the opposite of her love. It is the proof of it. Her storms are her way of asking, can you withstand me? Can you withstand life? Think of steel. Steel is not forged in comfort. Steel is hammered, broken, burned in fire until it emerges unshakable. That's the role of testing in love. She is the fire, you are the steel. And here's the brutal paradox. If you resent her chaos, you break. If you master it, you rise. The battlefield of relationships is not about romance. It's about sovereignty. Machiavelli would tell you, love is fragile, but respect is durable. And respect is only won on the battlefield, under pressure, in the storm. So the question is not, will she test me? The question is, am I a man who thrives in the test or collapses under it? Let's be honest. Most men fail, not because the test is impossible, but because they collapse under its weight. And when they collapse, something irreversible happens in her eyes. The mask slips, the illusion shatters, and the attraction dies a slow, merciless death. Let's break down the three common failures. Failure 1, the beggar. This is the man who pleads. She withdraws her affection, and instead of standing firm, he chases. He explains himself endlessly. He argues, desperate for her to understand him. He believes words can save him, as if logic could seduce her. But attraction is not built on words. It's built on presence. And the more he begs, the more he shows weakness. She doesn't hear his explanations. She feels his desperation. Machiavelli warned rulers never to appear needy. To need is to lack power. The beggar exposes his dependency, and in doing so, he destroys her trust. Failure 2, the tyrant. This is the man who overcompensates. She tests him with sarcasm, and instead of calm strength, he lashes out. He yells, he threatens, he dominates not with presence, but with brute force. At first it may seem powerful, but it is brittle power. Machiavelli warned that cruelty must be calculated, never reactive. The tyrant is reactive. His aggression is not mastery, it is insecurity disguised as dominance. A woman may fear him, but she will not respect him. Fear alone cannot sustain attraction. It breeds resentment, and resentment eventually rots love from the inside out. Failure 3, the ghost. This is the man who withdraws. She pushes, and he retreats into silence, into passivity. He avoids conflict, avoids confrontation, hoping the storm will blow over. But avoidance is the ultimate betrayal. By withdrawing, he signals he cannot face her chaos. And deep down, she reads it as cowardice. Machiavelli would say this man is like a prince who flees his castle at the first sign of rebellion. What subjects would follow such a ruler? None. And what woman would follow such a man? These are the archetypes of collapse. The beggar, the tyrant, the ghost. Different faces of the same truth. The man who fears the storm loses her respect. Because here is the raw, unfiltered reality. When she tests you, she is not asking for words or rage or silence. She is asking, are you unshakable? If you can remain composed when she provokes you, if you can smile at her chaos without collapsing or exploding, if you can stay rooted like an oak while the storm rages, then something primal shifts in her. She feels safe in your presence, not because you gave her comfort, but because you proved you cannot be moved. But most men never get here. They collapse before the fire has even begun. They fail not because she is cruel, but because they are unprepared. And Machiavelli's voice echoes across centuries. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Do you understand what this means in relationships? Love without respect dies, but respect without love can still hold. Respect is the foundation. Love is the decoration. Lose respect and no amount of love can save you. So the question burns. When she tests you, do you become the beggar, the tyrant, or the ghost? Or do you stand as the sovereign, the man who bends but does not break? Imagine a storm. The sky darkens, winds howl, branches snap. Everything bends, everything breaks, except the mountain. The mountain doesn't fight the storm. It doesn't beg for mercy. It doesn't run away. It simply stands, immovable, eternal. That is the sovereign man. Where the beggar pleads, the tyrant explodes, and the ghost withdraws. The sovereign remains, not frozen, not passive, but rooted, unshaken, present, alive. This is the man women crave but rarely find, not because he performs tricks or memorizes lines, but because he radiates a quality that cannot be faked, inner sovereignty. Machiavelli called it virtù, the strength, cunning, and composure of a true ruler. Not mere virtue in the moral sense, but virtue as power. The sovereign man embodies this. His presence commands without words. His silence speaks louder than arguments. His calm is not weakness, it is mastery. So how does he pass the test? 1. He doesn't argue, he demonstrates. When challenged, he does not drown her in explanations. He shows through action, not words. If she doubts his direction, he calmly continues. If she mocks his vision, he sharpens it further. The sovereign doesn't convince, he embodies. 2. He doesn't react, he responds. When provoked, he doesn't lash out in rage, he doesn't crumble in tears. He lets the fire burn around him and chooses his response with precision. Sometimes it's humor, sometimes it's silence, sometimes it's a piercing truth, but it's always deliberate, never reactive. Machiavelli advised rulers to control their image at all times. The sovereign man knows the same. Once you lose composure, you lose respect. 3. He frames the chaos. The sovereign man understands that her chaos is not the end, it's the test. He doesn't take it personally. He doesn't see it as betrayal. He sees it as nature. And because he sees clearly, he transforms her storm into fuel. Her resistance becomes his sharpening stone. Her chaos becomes his fire. Her test becomes his proof. This is why women secretly crave the sovereign man, because when she pushes and he doesn't break, she feels something deeper than comfort. She feels safe. Not safe in the fragile sense of coddling, safe in the primal sense. This man can withstand me, therefore he can withstand life. Do you understand how powerful that is? Every time she tests you and you stand firm, her respect grows. Her attraction deepens. She surrenders, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. And here's the Machiavellian twist. The sovereign doesn't seek her surrender. He doesn't even need her to test him. His sovereignty exists, whether she acknowledges it or not. That independence, that self-sufficiency is what makes him magnetic. Women cannot help but test, but the sovereign doesn't resent it. He welcomes it, because every test is an opportunity to prove to her and to himself that he is who he claims to be. Most men live in fear of losing her. The sovereign lives in truth. If she leaves, he remains complete. And paradoxically, that's why she stays. Because in a world of weak men, beggars, tyrants, ghosts, the sovereign is rare. Rare is irresistible. And Machiavelli's wisdom reminds us, power belongs not to those who demand it, but to those who embody it. Every man resents the test at first. You feel attacked, undermined, betrayed. You ask yourself, why can't she just love me as I am? Why does she always push, always question, always provoke? But what if I told you her test is not an obstacle, it's a gift? a brutal, uncomfortable, necessary gift. Think of the blacksmith's forge. The blade does not become sharp through comfort. It becomes sharp by fire, by hammer, by endless pounding. Every strike looks like destruction, but it is creation. Her tests are the hammer. Her chaos is the fire. And you, if you withstand it, become the blade. This is why Machiavelli's wisdom cuts so deeply here. He wrote that fortune, the unpredictable chaos of life, favors the bold, the resilient, the man who can adapt under pressure. Fortune is like a woman, he said, and must be mastered with strength. Women, whether they know it or not, embody this fortune. Their tests mimic life itself, unpredictable, volatile, demanding. And if you can withstand her storms, you are training for something bigger, the storms of existence. Why you need the test. Without it, you soften. Without it, you grow complacent. Without it, you become weak, lazy, entitled. Look around at modern men. How many have collapsed into softness, addicted to comfort, addicted to validation, addicted to a woman's approval? These men fail not because life was cruel, but because they avoided the forge. The test is nature's way of refusing you that luxury. It refuses to let you rot in comfort. Her chaos mirrors your chaos. Jung taught us that what we reject in others is often a mirror of what we reject in ourselves. When she triggers you, when her words cut deep, it's often because she's revealing something inside you that is unsettled, unhealed. Her storm exposes your cracks, and you hate her for it. But if you're wise, you use it. You face the shadow inside you that she illuminated. You grow. This is why some men break and others rise. The weak curse the storm. The strong harness it. The paradox of respect. Here's the hidden paradox. The very thing you resent her for, the relentless testing, is the very thing that makes her respect you. Without the test, there is no proof. Without the storm, there is no steel. Machiavelli would tell you, a ruler cannot trust loyalty untested. A man cannot trust his own strength unproven, and a woman cannot trust a man who has never stood unshaken in her storm. So the test is not punishment, it is opportunity. Each one is a chance to sharpen your edge, to prove your sovereignty, not only to her, but to yourself. And once you see this, resentment dies. Instead of asking, why does she test me? You begin to ask, what will this test forge in me today? That shift from victimhood to sovereignty is everything. Because in the end, her test is not about her. It's about you. It's about whether you will remain a child longing for comfort or a man who thrives in the storm. And when you embrace it, something remarkable happens. The storm no longer threatens you. It strengthens you. Her chaos no longer unsettles you. It refines you. You stop fearing her tests and start welcoming them as proof of your power. That is the hidden gift. That is the forge. So now you understand. Her tests were never cruelty. They were the storm that revealed your strength or your weakness. You wanted peace. She gave you chaos. You wanted acceptance. She gave you resistance. And now you see why, because only through fire does steel emerge. Machiavelli taught that fortune favors the bold, the man who embraces volatility instead of fleeing it. Women embody this fortune. Their testing is not an attack, it's the mirror of life itself. And if you collapse before her, you will collapse before the world. But if you stand firm, if you master the test, something shifts. She stops seeing you as another fragile boy and begins to see you as a sovereign man, not because you begged, not because you raged, but because you remained. And here's the truth. The test never ends. Not in love, not in life. Every day the world asks you the same question she does. Are you strong enough to withstand me? Your answer decides everything. So stop resenting the storm. Become the mountain. Stop chasing approval. Embody presence. Stop fearing the test. Master it, because once you do, women will respect you, men will follow you, and you yourself will know, deep in your bones, that you are unshakable. This is not just about dating, it's about life. It's about building men who rise in the fire, men who do not beg for mercy, but forge themselves into rulers of their own fate. And if you felt that truth burn inside you, like this video, share this with a brother who needs to hear it. Subscribe and support the mission using the link in the description below.